channel. All right. So it says here that we are streaming live. We're going to get a pop-up. However, all right, I'm going to start regardless. I'm Larissa Russell of Creative You Business, and I am here to share with you the Aligned Ambitions Show, where we share women's entrepreneurial wisdom. And if you're a woman starting or growing your online heart-centered business, wanting to do things differently, or feel icky about using manipulative marketing tactics, and are ready to align your business with your ethics, values, and life goals, then you'll want to stick around for this conversation. So today I have with me Tirra Hargrow. Tirra is a spiritual guide and coach who helps women align with their life purpose using ancient wisdom and goddess-centered lifestyle. She is twice initiated priestess with 20 years of experience doing personal readings, an astrologer, certified NLP practitioner, licensed hypnotherapist, and master women's circle facilitator and trainer. Wow. Tirra is on a mission to help women reclaim their power and connect with wisdom in their wombs for personal and collective healing, peace, and fulfillment. Welcome, Tirra. So
Thank you.
excited to have you. And like so in alignment with what we do. And I'm just so excited. Ah,
Thank
yes.
you. Glad to be here.
Yes. Well, I am just, yay. Well, for those who don't know you, can you share a little bit about, past the bio? How did you end up doing what you're doing? That sort of thing.
Yes. So I like to say I started out like a lot of people, just being raised up in a family. My family went to church. I was raised Christian. And even as a little girl, I knew I had a different view of spirituality. I didn't buy into everything that I was taught as a child. However, I just went along with it. I was raised up a good little Catholic girl, Mississippi, United States. So I was a weirdo. So it was kind of good. And just the older I got, the more I began to realize I think differently, I feel differently, but I'm not quite sure what to do about it because I didn't know anyone. No one had presented me with an alternative. And when I was in my early 20s, I had what I call a spiritual awakening, where I was like, I feel like there is something calling me to it, and it has something to do with spirituality. I am African American and I come from people who were enslaved here in the United States. And so for me, there was a sense of a loss of identity. And so it sort of sounded like, well, who were my ancestors before they were brought over here on those slave ships? And everyone would say, oh, it doesn't matter. We're Christian and, we're just going to go with that. It's working for us or whatever. But I was like, I don't know. I just feel like I need to know. And at some point, I just began to open myself up to figure out what is this pull that I'm having. And it was after my mother passed that I thought, I don't have anything in me anymore to push back against this voice. I have to answer it. And I had already started doing things like reading books and learning about different spiritual systems and I guess in the past it was called new age type stuff or whatever. And at one day, I was 29 years old. It was as if I just said, you know what? I'm taking it and I'm throwing it all up in the air. And the way I phrased it at that time was, I just want to know the truth. And it doesn't have to be what I want it to be. I just want to know. And it just sent me down this entire path of learning more about spirituality outside of the religion I was raised up in. And I started realizing that I have a gift. Even as a little girl, I was told, you're very wise. You're wise beyond your years. That was something that was regularly told, even though I've always been kind of gullible and innocent in some regards. But there was just a wisdom that I always embodied. And so I started doing readings at some point when I was introduced to a particular oracle out of Africa. And what my teacher said was, you know how to use this oracle and nobody taught you. I just figured it out. And I've been using that oracle since probably 2002. And it's the same deck. It's my handy little deck right here. And a lot of what I've done is raise my children. I've been married for almost 30 years. I have two sons. I was a homeschool mom, always out the box. I always do things a little bit out of the box. And I just kind of played around with doing readings. And once I knew my younger son, excuse me, was graduating, um, I was like, it's time for me to figure out what I'm going to do once he leaves. And that's what made me say, okay, I'm really good at doing readings and I want to take this to the next level. And so in 2019 is when I got very serious about having a business and also realizing I need to do something besides just readings. I had to learn, how do you advertise? It was kind of like referrals before, I guess. I had a website. Sometimes people would find me on the website, but to figure out how do I attract more people into my business, that was a mission, or that was the path I got on in 2019 and have been on it ever since. And I began to realize I've always been a mentor. And so I was like, I want to be a coach. I don't want to just do readings for people. I want to be able to support them if they need something, more guidance on how to carry the reading out. And so that's how I started just getting so many of the trainings that you mentioned. So I really consider myself to be a coach, but I use things like NLP, hypnosis, and the latest thing that I have done over the last 2 years is become a certified women's circle facilitator, just because just have the ability to gather women and help them step into their healing in community. There's nothing like it. So that's this very short version of how I've gotten to where I am today.
I love it. I love that story too, because there's a lot of us that we know there's something different about us. We know that we're, thinking differently, but there's things that get in the way. And when you mentioned your mother, it was like, yes, once those last barriers, right? It's like, okay, now I can try. Now I can try. And a lot of changes came, I have to say, after my mother passed as well, because it was
Mm-hmm.
like, and I was raised in what would be considered new age. I was thinking we were dating ourselves with that term, but very much a new age um, home, but still not quite. Right? It was still pretty mainstream new age, if you will. And so
Okay.
once you start like really moving into the energy and the divine feminine and the divine masculine, and just really sitting with those energies, I'm not so sure that would have been as accepted in my new age home. So yes.
For me, it was really the pain. I have to say, for me, it was the pain because my mom kind of sort of rolled with me. Like if I did something, I would just grab her and we'd run together. So for me, it was the pain just wouldn't let me contain the
Mhm.
question anymore. And so, and honestly, when I was grieving my mom, the answers that were coming from the religion I was raised up in were not helpful. As a matter of fact, they were hurtful. And it just made me like, forget this. This is not working. I'll tell you one other thing. The African religion, I initiated into an African religion. It The main reason I got into it was because it has an ancestral component. And so one of the first things you do is you build an ancestral altar. So for me, it was like, oh, this is how I can connect with my mom. And so, yeah,
Oh, I
that's
love that.
that's where the barrier was removed for me.
I love that. I love that for sure. That, those things that because it is, there's the ancestral line. Then there's, this lifetime, not to mention our soul's lifetime, but this lifetime, and there's all these different layers upon layers that play into how we move forward.
Mm,
And for those of you who are thinking, what does this have to do with business? Everything, because when we can be in alignment with our own selves, right?
it's
That's the
true.
first step. And then we can, bring that forward to share with other people. And I think that's such an important part. And so as you gained all this knowledge and more wisdom as you went on and sharing, I love your emails, I have to say, and I watch a lot of your YouTube trying to learn, but you know what? It it's not where my focus is, right? And so I'm like, I'll just go and find out what's going on. Oh, okay, that makes sense. I don't have to learn all the things. I can just check out what you're talking about and go,
I
oh yeah,
agree.
that's why this is happening.
I couldn't agree more. Yes. If someone is well versed in astrology, why should you learn it? Just
Yeah,
listen to someone you trust and they will take care of you.
I don't need to know all the things. I don't. And which is a really good point to business as well. You don't need to do all the things.
Oh my gosh, that is so true.
It's so true. One of the things I did want to talk to you about, and we spoke briefly about this earlier, was we're switching our mastermind, our business mastermind, to seasonal planning. So we're going to work with the seasons and the energy of the seasons. And I would love your take on that, what your thoughts are on seasonal planning or working with the energy to do that.
Oh my gosh. I think it so as you said in my bio, I promote what is called the goddess centered lifestyle. It's a term I created. And that's because I know that so many of us have lived in a very masculine way. And once we start living more with our feminine energy, or anyone, it doesn't have to be a woman, but especially women, who are just really embodying the feminine energy. When we live according to the feminine energy, we are healthier and it's actually easier to get things done. And the goddess centered lifestyle does involve, we can think about nature, we can think about astrology, divination, we can think about, masculine versus feminine, to be honest with you, because the goddess centered lifestyle doesn't, or when we're thinking about living more feminine, it doesn't exclude the masculine because we need it for the balance. And so a lot of times I'll think masculine is taking action.
Mhm.
Feminine is not taking action, it's just taking action maybe in a more relaxed way. But a lot of times when I think feminine, I think rest. And so we need to understand that energy is everything. And when we intentionally and consciously plan how to work with the energy, then it doesn't feel like we're, going up against a wall. That's one of the ways I got into astrology because it's like, well, when you understand that the energy is moving down, I'm just making up a way to describe it. The energy is going downhill,
Mhm.
but you're working to go uphill. It's going to feel so much more challenging. And so when we begin to use the seasons and understand what are the meanings of the season or each season, then we can use that to our advantage. And so I actually, before I had astrology, I only my main cycles were the four seasons. And of course, it depends on where you are in the world. I don't know if you have an audience down under, but we definitely want to honor spring as a time where it's about new beginnings. And it's a time where, well, actually, we can plant the seeds maybe early on in spring, and then we start to work to cultivate, just like a garden. I think about the seasons like gardening. In the spring, we all know we're planting the seeds, and then we're cultivating the garden. And then there's the summertime where there's way more action, perhaps, that we'll take. And then the fall is where we'll get the harvest. And I always used to see the fall as a time for me to start collecting myself and getting myself ready because, it's going to get darker, to take myself into that time of rest. And then, of course, the winter time, it's not like we don't do anything, but we definitely want to give ourselves that opportunity to take time off. Whether people celebrate Christmas and, all of that holiday time that comes right at the end of December to the top of January, doesn't matter if we celebrate that time or not. If we live in a culture that honors that time, I'm like, oh, I'm taking this time off, baby. I'm going to slow myself down as much as I can if that works for your business. Some people may have a business that actually ramps up, because people are buying gifts or whatever. So that's the number one thing we want to do, is to think about what is the mission of that season, and think about the activities, think about your goals. What are you working on? and which goals or what activities can you take that align with the energy of that season that help you work toward your goal. I can say a bit more, but I want to stop there and see, did you want to
I
talk about
love that because that's exactly what we've been talking about, right? Because we work with the feminine energy as much as possible. We work in community, we bring in a lot of creativity, we talk a lot about self-care and rest, and there's so much intuition, all of those things that are a part of the divine feminine. And we work with that a lot in our mastermind. And so it was actually at New Year's, and we had done this big event for planning the 2024. And after it was over, I went, what are we doing? What are we doing? That was like the most ridiculous thing ever. This is not what we're trying to achieve. We are trying to do things differently. And so we had a big conversation about it in our community. And I'm like, what do you think of this? Like, what do you think? And everyone was like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. Now we're at that point now. So we're starting with spring and we're doing our planning and tomorrow actually. And so we were talking about it and everyone's completely open, but now they're starting to think of the logistics, right? Because we have our calendar and we have all of these things that line up. What about our taxes? What about, and so we're starting to explore those different aspects to see. And once you answer those questions, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see how this can totally work. Like, right. And so it's been amazing conversations in that to see, and it's going to be a practice. I've told them all, like, I'm just as linear thinking as everyone else. We've been raised in this, we've been taught this is the only way, but we know it's not. So it's like, how can we do that different? Right. And so it's been really great to have those conversations to get the women to start to explore, like, yeah, we talk about doing things differently. We talk about aligning. And then what does that really look like? And so, yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Larissa, that's such a good point to have that question. Well, what does that really look like? Because we haven't lived that way. It does take time to cultivate living according to the cycles. And so, what I'll start out with saying is, especially when we think about the first day of spring, first day of summer, fall, and winter, those are pivotal times. And so I'm drawing on my astrology knowledge at this point. We have in astrology signs that are called cardinal, and cardinal means new beginnings and action. So the one thing I know I can tell you all that you don't need to know any astrology for, because all you have to do is go with the dates, is think about the first day of each season being like the new moon. It's the time where you're going to plant the seeds, come up with your 90-day plan. Now, I personally like creating the 90-day plan prior to the first day of that particular season. So we just went into spring. Creating the 90-day plan may be, all of March. That'll give you 3 weeks leading up to the first day of spring. And then on that day, it would be great to do something more ritualistic, like light a candle, go through the 90-day plan, open yourself up to maybe seeing yourself in the future, right before the summer solstice, and you have achieved all of those goals. Just, allow yourself to imagine that it has happened, or pull an oracle card to kind of give you the energy governing you for the next, for this particular cycle. I'm just going to stick with spring. Pull a card. What energy is governing you? And I just want to say, let's say 7 days, first day of spring, and then a week beyond. You could do that at any time. It doesn't have to be day of. Though the day of, I do recommend light the candle, light the candle, and just be like, thank you, new season. I'm so happy that you're here, and I'm going to work with your energy, because I believe that there's a wisdom embedded in each season. It's almost like it's an entity of itself. It has wisdom, and all you have to do is just say, I know you're here, and I am willing to work with you, and just I ask you to work with me in the best way possible. But then within that first 7 days, write out what is it that you want to achieve, do the rituals, pull a card to help you to understand, what do you want to, what energy is guiding you, how do you need to show up, what wisdom will help you to have a successful next 90 days. And then whatever else it could be, dance, have a good time, or if it's the summertime, it may be something specific, maybe go to, I believe in incorporating nature.
Mhm.
So maybe for Cancer season, that's summer, you go to the water. It doesn't matter where you go, but if you're near an ocean, go to the ocean, but just go near any body of water. And if it is the fall, Libra, I just love the fall being a time where it's like, we're outside, we're looking at the leaves change, or whatever it's like, because I know it might be a little bit different in Canada.
Oh, we have all the
Or
seasons. We have all the seasons.
okay, I can never remember. I know it seems like y'all just start getting snow right away. I'm living in South USA, so I'm like, y'all got snow already? Oh my gosh! But in the fall, I just see it as a time to just go outside and like the bonfires and just camp out, whatever it is, go hiking, that kind of thing. And then at the winter time, I see that as a time of going into the womb. So doing something that is all about honoring the darkness. And I'm not gonna lie, before I knew astrology, even still now, something that I like to imagine is I'll take myself and wrap myself up in my favorite blanket and imagine that I'm in a womb like state, because that's how I see the winter. I get to go back into the womb of darkness and rest, rejuvenate myself. And so it could be anything like that at each new season change, doing something special that feels good to you, that will honor that season, but also it's a ritualistic way of adding energy to your 90-day plan.
Mhm.
And, you've already forecasted or at least imagined that you've already succeeded. And it's just a way to just really seal in the energy, and just it's kind of like it'll buoy you, or it'll be like the wind behind your back. And so you can do that each season change. And then of course, once you get closer to the end of the season, we got to go back and look at that 90-day plan to see what have we achieved, celebrate it, and then move over whatever else we're going to, what we didn't finish, add the new as we go into the new season. So
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I'm going to incorporate some of that because we're just
there you
starting
go.
this. So I'm going to incorporate some of that for sure. Because I think it's so important. And this year is my year of exploring the moon. So,
Mm.
I've been exploring that a little bit. And I know very little about astrology overall. I've had my birth chart done, although it's not completely confirmed because I can't get my birth records because my mom's passed and I'm old. So, all
Oh,
those things. So,
okay.
they told me the records are most likely have been destroyed already, and she has to sign. And I'm like, well, I don't think I can get her to sign, but if they're destroyed, I'm not going to go through the effort of whatever else I would need to do. So, anyways, um,
Understandable.
that's a whole other thing. So, when you think about then your business, and okay, so seasonal, that's like step one, and then the moon is like another layer. Now, if you bring in all the astrology parts, or maybe I don't know what would be the next step to how does that help you in your business? Because this is what you're a master at. And so, how does that help you move through your business overall? Right?
Oh my gosh, the moon. I love the moon. It's my favorite planet. It's my favorite planet. Okay, so the moon is, you can use the moon day by day. You can use the moon in terms, because it has a cycle. It's very similar to the seasons. So when we think about the new moon, it's pretty much spring. Then, there's always going to be a full moon. Most people know new moon and full moon. And so we just start going through each. I guess you could say summer is more of like first quarter moon, and then fall is the full moon, and winter is the last quarter moon. I actually never described it like that until just this moment. So there y'all go. Y'all were the first to see that. So, but instead of having to think about 365 days, we can just bring it down to about 28 days, give or take. And so I plan according to the new moon. So I use the quarter, which is that season that I told you about. Say, for instance, we're in spring. So that's going to be Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. Spring. And that's one way that I plan. And then within each of those, well, within each quarter, I'm using the new moon to set intentions for each month. It's how I work through the months. And it's how I keep myself motivated. So now I'm not waiting actually to assess. I do the 90-day assessment, but going along the way is I'm setting new moon intentions. I get to reset myself each time. And so I just start going through, I set the new moon intention, and then what do I want to achieve over the next month? And I work actually up until the full moon, and I look to see where am I. And then after the full moon, I start working on winding down whatever it is that I can actually complete. And then I get back to the new moon. So that's one way I go from the new moon to the full moon to the next new moon.
Mhm.
And that is very, very helpful. And I like to share that particular system because most people can figure out when is the new moon and when is the full moon.
Mhm.
So I want to tell you something else, but tell me any questions that you have thus far about
No,
that.
I think that's perfect because we had actually just touched on it. And I'm like, should we be doing our planning? Because now we're not going to do it for the end of the month for the next month. So I'm like, should we be looking at the new moon? And so we had a discussion about that yesterday. And it was like, yeah, I think that sounds like it would be a good plan. And so this is like right in alignment with that. Yeah,
Good.
perfect. Perfect.
Okay. So what we want to do is with the new, we go from the new moon to the full moon. Okay.
Mhm.
That is called waxing. The energy of the moon is building. And so this is what I want to tell you all. Any time between the new moon and the full moon, if you haven't created, so this is where we actually are right now. We're in the waxing moon phase. If you haven't created your new moon, your new moon intentions, do it anytime. Because that the energy of the new moon, yes, it's strongest at the new moon, but we're under the energy of that new moon until the full moon. Okay. So
Mhm.
let's just say, let's imagine we set our intentions at the new moon for this next 30 days.
Great.
What you can do is you see the new moon to the full moon as a time to take action. Sometimes the action is, oh, I've got to come up with a plan. I have to retool the plan. Sometimes it's just straight up action. You're actually doing the thing. But it's definitely it's an energy is building up. It's building up. And you can kind of see it as like, okay, what can I accomplish in this 2 weeks? And when you get to the full moon, then you want to take that time. Actually, one thing is celebrate. The full moon is a time to celebrate. And I know you know this. We, especially women, do not take time to celebrate. We will beat ourselves up. We will look
Mhm.
at all the things that we haven't done and and not even realize I actually did more than I thought. Or the one little thing I did, it actually was very significant. So that's one thing that we want to do at the full moon. And then at the full moon, we use it because it's the energy is bright. So it's an illumination. We want to take that energy and see, okay, what is this? What is the energy showing me? What is the universal energy, the lunar energy showing me? It might be there was something you couldn't figure out, and you can set the intention at the new moon. I would love to see if I can get a response. I never say anything is absolute. Maybe you get part of the answer, maybe you get all of the answer at the full moon, maybe you get none of the answer, but just putting it out there will eventually help draw that energy to you. But typically, people are going to realize something at the full moon. And then from the full moon going back, oh, sorry about that. From the full moon going back to the new moon, that is the waning period. We go, 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 always rushing. When do we rest? When do we take time off? When do we relax? When do we rejuvenate? So at some point after that full moon, we should have days set aside that we're like, I'm not doing anything. I'm just going to rest. And actually, the closer we get to the new moon, sometimes those are the best days to just kind of rest and relax. So that's another layer of working with the moon. Just understand new to full, take action. Full to new, at some point, well, at full moon, celebrate, look for anything, any answers that may be coming, or just it might be a eureka, right? Moment. And then from full to new, let's build in some rest. Let's build in some rejuvenation. Let's build in some rest. Let's build in some release. Do we need to clean off our computer, our hard drive? Do we need to release, clutter from the area that we're in? Because it definitely is a time of release. What can you release that will help you better manifest in the next moon cycle, new moon cycle?
I love it. I love it. And I just feel like I feel tingly all over because it's just like, yes, this is exactly what we're working towards, right? Is that we want this energy moving forward. And I often talk about the masculine and feminine energies, and not that I'm not talking about men and women, although it is more dominant, right? And then of course we live in this very patriarchal society that has beaten any feminine energies out of us, out of men and women, right? Like it's
True.
literally beaten out of us. And so learning to tap back into that
Mm-hmm.
is a practice, right?
It is.
Learning to feel into the divine feminine energies is a practice because we are constantly bombarded with all the reasons why we shouldn't do it that way. And yet we know when we feel it, right? We feel
Yeah.
it and we know that this is right. And so yeah, oh, I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you.
It's all about the ancient, I know that we are so much more technologically advanced, but it doesn't take away from the ancient teachings, the ancient people, the ancient ways, and their contributions. And, you know, if they practiced it to get for us to be here today, I
Mhm.
think there's some value in it. And so, the way I see it, it's about reaching back, bringing ancient ways into modern times to help us live better, to feel better, to I don't know. Sometimes I get jealous when I see people who just seem so relaxed. I went to the Dominican Republic one time, and it's not to say that they don't have their issues. Where I was, it was not an affluent part of Dominican Republic, but there was a part of me that was a little bit jealous because it was like they're just in the moment. But we can have that too. We can be business owners and have all the things to do, and we can also allow ourselves to just really tap into the beauty of being alive, the beauty of just looking out the window, staring at the trees. I remember just thinking about how nature teaches. And this is what we're talking about with the cycles and the seasons, the moon. What is the moon teaching us? What is nature teaching us? And we want to begin to align ourselves with that wisdom because guess what? It works. It was here before we got here. It's going to be here after we leave here. Maybe, just maybe, it will help us, just be affluent, not affluent, but successful and abundant and just enjoy. Because so many of us, and I'm not even acting like I'm not one of those people, we're tired. Business takes so much out of us, and it's time out for that, especially for us women. So, yeah,
Oh,
let's
I'm so
let's
with
live
you.
according to the seasons.
That's a great first start. And then we can layer on more things as, but if we can just feel into that, the energy of the season, and if you want to add the moon, great. And then more and more. But oh, I just thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, I just want to thank you so much for being here. You do have a free gift that you want to offer, and we'll put the link up for everyone. And I always forget if you're watching, and have a question, please feel free. Pop it in the chat. I get so engrossed and yeah, and I just, anyways, if you have a question, Tyra's talking about her free gift, the Mastery 2024 with the Oracles Guide. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, Larissa, I'm gonna change this live and on air, if that's
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
I actually have a course on how to use the moon. Since we've
Okay.
talked about this so much, I'll still give actually because it's there on my website. You can still have it. I love using oracles
Mhm.
to guide me in my business. I do readings every day for myself. And I even mentioned at the beginning of the season, if you want to pull a card, let's say if you don't use spiritual oracle decks, it could be an affirmation, whatever it is. So the 2024 Oracle Guide is just, I went through, did several readings, and then there are is spiritual wisdom that you can use, and it can be a guiding light, is how I see it. And I'm going to throw in there access to my lunar course. It specifically helps you to understand the cycle of the moon that I
Okay.
was talking about. So I'll send that to you, Larissa,
Oh,
for your
perfect. Well,
audience.
thank you. And then I'll make sure the link gets put up so that you can do that. And where can they find you in the meantime till we get that information to them?
Goddess Body Mind Spirit.com. And it has all my social links and largely follow my YouTube channel. But that's there on my website also, goddessbodymindspirit.com.
Perfect. And we'll have that link as well. So, oh, well, thank you. And any final thoughts before we go? I have like I could talk to you for hours. I really could, and I
Oh,
might
thank
still, but any final thoughts before we go today?
Oh, just so honored to be here. And, one of the things that I'll say is I'm slowly but surely turning into a business coach for people who have spiritual businesses and creatives. And so I can't express the importance of women pursuing their goals, seeking to have a business, even if it takes a little while. I just want to encourage you to stick with your dreams. You're working with a wonderful woman here, Larissa. I met her in another group, and I was just like, this woman is a powerhouse. So yeah, y'all just continue to work together. When women work together, magic happens. And I
Yeah.
look forward to hearing about the success of just everyone in your community, Larissa.
Yeah. And if you want to go deeper, so we're going to do like maybe just that surface level, but if you want to go deeper with your business, then Tara's the person for you for sure. Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you everyone for watching, listening. And if you're a woman interested in aligning your heart-centered business with your ethics, values, and life goals, join our Aligned Business Building Mastermind. And we have 90% off your first 30 days. So for the
Mhm.
cost of a latte, you can begin to align your business. So thank you, everyone, and we will see you next time on the Aligned Ambition Show.